Hello and thank you for your time. In the following video, I will present to you the implementation of the bonds application that Qantas has developed over the Algorand blockchain. We have three different roles in our bond application. Trustee, the operator of the platform, issuer, the company that wants to issue bonds over the Algorand blockchain, and investors, the buyers and traders of those bonds. We will show you how each of those roles interacts with our platform in order to complete the life cycle of a digital bond over the Algorand blockchain. In the interface you see now, you have the view of the trustee, the operator of our bond platform. The trustee receives a request from an issuer to create and print bond tokens. He goes to his interface and then fills out all the relevant fields. He has to determine what's the wallet address of the issuer, the name of the bond, and fill out all of the relevant details, including the maturity date and coupon dates. Once all details have been filled out properly, the trustee then creates those bonds. And once the bonds have been created, we are then taken to another page that shows us the list of all the created bonds that have yet to be confirmed. We see that we can notice also the code of the bond, the issuer, wallet address, the name, description, and so on. And we also notice that the status right now is pending connect, meaning that this bond, before it can be issued, has to be reviewed by the issuer who has to confirm all of the relevant details. Once all the relevant details have been confirmed, then the bond gets confirmed and then issued on the Algorand blockchain and made available to sale. And so now we've logged in as the bond issuer. We noticed that the bond issuer logs in using his wallet. He doesn't have any bonds available yet because he hasn't confirmed his bonds yet, but then he has a certain amount of stable coins available to him. He then clicks on transactions to see if he has any pending transactions and notices that there is a pending one. He clicks on it and then he notices that there's a pending transaction to connect to the QTZB bond. He clicks on it and then he can see the details, the status, and then he confirms the buy, meaning that he confirms the bond. Now the bonds have been created, and we see that 1,000 units of the QTZB bond have been made available at the face value of 50 euros. So now the issuer is free to sell these bonds as he wishes on the open market. And now, in order to complete the process, we will show you the part of an investor wishing to invest in those bonds. So then we will log in as the investor, and then we see that the investor wallet has 100 euros available in balance. So before he can actually start trading these bonds, he needs to add the QTZB bond to his portfolio. So then he goes to the list of the bonds that are available and then presses on the one that he wants to add to his portfolio. And after a while, we notice that this bond is then made available in his account, and then he can start creating buy or sell orders depending on the amount of balance that he has in his account. Now, when the investor wants to buy these bonds, then he can go to the buy bonds. He selects the bonds that he wants to buy and submits an order for the bond that he wants to buy at the price of the that is set, and he sets the units, confirms the buy, and now the order has been created. Now we will log in from the bond issuer to see how as a bond issuer you would see this request and decide whether you should approve it or not. So we go to transactions, we see if there's a pending transaction, we click on it, and we notice that we have a sell request for one QTZB bond. Click on it. We can review the details of this transaction, and if we accept, then we confirm it. The operation has been confirmed. We notice that the amount of QTZB has been decreased. We now hold 999 bonds, and the amount of stable coins has increased. So it was 100, and now it's 145. Now we go back to the investor's account, and we notice that the amount of euros has decreased and the amount of QTZB has been increased. That means that the operation has been successful and is properly reflected for both the investor and the issuer of the bonds. Now we will demonstrate to you an OTC trade between a buyer and a seller. So for that to happen, the buyer needs to share his public key. To do so, he clicks on buy, and then he has the option to share his public key. He has multiple ways that he can share it. He can either send it through a message or through email, and then he can possibly just copy it. So he copies his public key and he sends it to the seller. The seller, we will log in now. And what the seller has to do is that he has to create a sell order using the buyer's public key. The seller owns one Quantos bond and he decides to sell it. So he goes to the sell order. He creates one sell order for one Quantos bond. He sets the price of the unit and the number of tokens that he can sell. And then we paste the buyer's public key. Once we confirm that everything is in order, we confirm the sell order. And now the seller has created the sell order. And now we go back to the buyer's view. We had two transactions and we see that we have one pending transaction. We click on it and we check if all details are in order. If we accept this offer, we can confirm. And as you can see now, the balance of the buyer has been updated. And now we see that the user has 94 stablecoin euros instead of 145 and 1,000 units of QTZB instead of 999. We will now demonstrate to you interest payments. The way interest payment works is the trustee of the bond logs into his platform and sees that the QTZB bond has a interest payment date on the 24th of June with an estimated value of 0.5 euros. So he initiates this transaction, and what that does is it sends a transaction request from the trustee to the issuer. The issuer logs into his account and then heads to transactions, and there he sees that he has a pending transaction. The pending transaction is the payment of an interest payment of 0.5 euros. And then he reviews the details. After he accepts all the details, he confirms. And now we can see that the payout has happened and the issuer's account was changed from 94 euros to 93.5. And now we will log in from the perspective of an investor. If we had two transactions, we see that under completed transactions, he has an interest payment of 0.5 euros. So he received successfully 0.5 euros in his account. And now regarding the maturity payment, the same way the trustee logs into his user interface and goes to maturity payment, he noticed that the QTZB bond has matured. So he needs to trigger the maturity payment. He clicks on initiate. And what that does is that also sends a request to the issuer. We log back in from the perspective of the issuer, and we immediately see that the QTZB bond have disappeared from my available balance because once the maturity payment has been triggered, then all bonds are retired. We head back to transactions, and we notice that we also have one pending transaction, and that's the maturity payment of one QTZB bond. He sees all of the details, and if he accepts, then he confirms. And once the operation has been confirmed, we will see that the issuer's balance has been deducted from 50 euros and it changed from 93.5 to 43.5. Now we will log in from the investor's perspective, and we see that the investor has 50 stablecoins more and no more entry for the QTZB bond because it has been retired. We go to transactions, and you notice that we have one successful transaction for plus 50 euros for the maturity of the QTZB bond. That's how the maturity payout works, and thank you for your time.